One thing I want to point out here is I want to show you this stuff has taken a huge toll on him. You know, Biden, right before the 2020 election, he was right side up, which in our polarized politics is quite astonishing. But look, Trump and Rudy Giuliani began this campaign to try to tarnish Biden, to try to turn him into the Clinton name, you know, with the obsession over the Ukraine businesses with Hunter. And it's worked. His numbers now look more like Hillary Clinton 16 than Biden 20.
The 2024 Republican presidential primary field is taking shape.
The battle lines are becoming clearer, and so is the field of candidates.
Is the odds-on favorites, if you look at the polling, still Trump versus Biden?
That seems to be it, but it's just way too early to tell.
I'm more angry now, and I'm more committed now than I ever was.
Big challenge for these candidates is going to be how do they navigate Donald Trump? And how do they navigate Ron DeSantis?
You and I have a rendezvous with destiny.
Welcome back to a big edition of the Ruthless Variety Program in what has been a momentous 3-week run, fellas.
And it's going to get more momentous. I mean, I hope all the folks at home already know Wednesday is going to be the GOP primary debate, but it will also be the Ruthless game day style pre-game show starting at 5:30 p.m. Eastern, 4:30 Central on YouTube.
Yeah, tomorrow is going to be a very, very special day. Not only do we have fresh, hot analysis from the Ruthless Variety Program.
Serving it up hot.
We have Duncan's Hog out there on the plaza.
We will have Duncan's Hog.
And we also have a lineup of guests that you will not forget.
You will not forget it. Listen, if there's one thing that you've tuned into and appreciated about the Ruthless Variety Program, it's all manifesting itself into this program. Yeah. It has been a long time dream of ours to do a game day style setup before a big political event. There is no bigger political event than the first debate of a party that is challenging an incumbent to the White House. We are part of this, and it's historical. We're going to do something different. We're going to try to be, ourselves.
And anybody out there who's a fan of College Game Day knows that there's one facet to College Game Day that everybody looks forward to, and that is the celebrity guest picker.
Mm-hmm.
We will not disappoint on this front. In fact, we have our own super secret celebrity guest picker for tomorrow night.
That's right. That's right. And much like the NFL, we will be live streaming on YouTube, which we will send out all of our links on all of our social media, so you will be well aware of where to find us. And that, my friends, is going to be a big deal.
I could not be more excited. This is going to be incredible. Absolutely incredible. Everyone, if you have not yet, subscribe on YouTube and be sure to check out this live stream because it's going to be amazing.
It is really going to be amazing. So, listen, before we get into the program here, we got a couple of things that we need to talk about. First off is, when I say it's been a hell of a run, it's really been a hell of a run. 2 weeks ago, we were in Iowa. Mm-hmm. We did a live show with, a very big audience in the heart of Des Moines with DeSantis and Nikki Haley. We had Governor Reynolds. We had Senator Ernst. We had just an enormous amount of energy for
it was rocking in there.
Change in this country, and we had a lot of fun. And then the next day we spent literally all day in 90-degree heat, end to end, combing the fair, talking to people, going out and meeting with Pence and Progrum, and then we saw basically all of the presidential candidates, some of which I don't even know their names.
And even Senator Grassley, he was there for the breaking news of the special counsel for Hunter Biden. I mean, we've been all over, but that wasn't the end of it.
It was not the end of it. And so Friday, right after you heard the program, all of us loaded up on an airplane and went down to Atlanta to Eric Erickson's gathering event, where, again, he had basically all of the presidential candidates sans Trump. And that's a little bit of a pattern here that we're going to see, again, extended in Milwaukee, is that you've got all of the presidential candidates showing up to every one of these sort of features, sans Trump, and making their pitch. But there was, it had been 1,000 people in that audience. It was a great crowd, a lot of people we got to talk to. And then we did a show down there.
Yeah. Eric's put a really, really good thing together down there. I mean, he has, I don't know how many affiliate stations he has around the country. Maybe it's a dozen or more or something like that. But he's got a lot of really big towers that are broadcasting his signal on terrestrial radio. And everybody who hears it is extremely lucky. We were lucky to be down there. Obviously, you mentioned he had a huge lineup, but the crowd obviously loved the guy.
Yeah.
I mean, it was his crowd. You mentioned Eric Erickson's name, everybody went nuts.
Yeah, they loved it, and he's been doing it for a long time. It takes a lot to put an event like that. Trust us. That takes a lot to put an event like that together, and to get presidential candidates in the height of the primary out of the early states to some other place goes to show what you were talking about, that he's got an awful lot of a big following down there in Georgia, and people understand how important Georgia is to winning this presidential elections. We've talked about a lot. So we were honored to do it. But I mean, we're the hardest working crew in showbiz at this point,
Pretty much.
aren't we?
And then we'll be flying out to Milwaukee
Today.
Yeah.
Do the pregame show.
While you're listening to this show, we are en route to Milwaukee.
Yeah. Oh, man. Well, you mentioned we had Grassley in that interview, which you're going to hear here on this show live today. We're more than happy to do it, guys. He's a legend. And we would be nowhere on the Hunter Biden stuff without him and the commitment of his staff to make sure that the American people actually understand what's happening here. Clearly, there's no interest from the news media. Clearly, the FBI, DOJ have tried their very best to smooth this thing over without raising awareness of anybody outside. He has made sure that that's not going to happen.
That's right.
Yeah, I'll say this about Grassley, because I think a lot of people just don't really have a full appreciation for what someone like him brings to the table. I think most people out there, maybe not necessarily most people who are listening to the Variety program, but most people out there think, oh, well, if people in government are doing something wrong, if companies are doing something wrong, the FBI is going to investigate. Somebody in the government's going to investigate. The media is going to go after them.
Yeah.
And we know that's not always the case.
That's right.
Well, it's particularly if you have an R before or after your name on a ballot, that it becomes problematic.
Exactly. So if you are interested in someone who's going to investigate everyone, regardless of party, regardless of anything, you're lucky to have Chuck Grassley in the position of authority that he's in, because he doesn't stop for anything.
Yeah, no question about it. There has definitely been two systems of justice for the Democratic Party, and all those affiliated with it have had a very different view than those who wear Republican stripes. And this is a guy who doesn't care. He doesn't care what your stripes are. Justice is justice. He's done it for decades, and has been very, very good at it. So we're excited about that. You'll hear that at the end of this show today. Also, just look, Wisconsin, let me just shout out the Minions here for a minute. It became apparent to us last week that there were some availabilities for us to try to get some folks into this debate. And we sent out notice. I'm blown away at how terrific this audience is at mobilizing immediately.
Yep.
I mean, it is shocking. I mean, we can basically, I think, get thousands of people anywhere in this country at a moment's notice because of the commitment of people on this program to exactly what we talk about on a day-to-day basis, but their commitment to making their country a better place and a good time.
Exactly. So, I mean, those folks, we won't spoil the surprises we have for them yet. But
We have
for
an
the
amazing-
Minions who are going to be there live in person, let me tell you, you've got the best deal going in what all you're going to be. I mean, you're going to see and enjoy more than pretty much anyone at this debate.
Yeah, it doesn't begin and end with game day.
That's right.
It doesn't
There's
begin
a
and
lot. There's
and
a
end
lot.
with
We've
the
had
debate itself.
a lot of folks working with us to make sure everyone gets super hooked up there.
Yeah, there's a lot of really good stuff there. So anyway, we're excited about Scotty. We're excited about the first debate. We're excited about everything that we've been up to here over the last couple weeks. But let's get into the news, shall we? All right, so a bunch of polls came out over the weekend that reiterated what we've seen here for months, which is Donald Trump has got a pretty sizable lead. Yeah. And it's also, it's sort of any poll, right? It's the NBC Des Moines Register poll. It's the CBS poll. We saw all these things. We'll take the CBS or the NBC Des Moines one because, as we've talked about, I think the state-by-state stuff is more important at this point than your nationwide polling. But that shows Trump out with a 20-point lead over DeSantis in Iowa. And his advantage comes despite the fact, obviously, that he's been dealing with one tragically bad news cycle after another with the indictments and all of that. The fact that he's got to turn himself over next week to Atlanta authorities as they're doing this debate. And he says he's not going to debate. He's going to do a Tucker Carlson interview instead of showing up to the debate. But his lead seems steady.
Yeah.
Does it not?
It does. And this is, like you said, in the face of all the challenges that he has faced legally. I mean, I think as of a few moments ago, he just posted, was it $200,000 bail?
Yeah, I mean, that's
trucking.
That's, you know.
Yeah, his number seems durable for the moment, and he obviously takes a great amount of confidence in his ability to hang on to it. Otherwise, he would be there at the debate with everybody else. And I think it's obviously it's a long shot, but like if he were to just at the last minute decide I'm coming to Wisconsin, I don't care, it would be an incredible display.
It'd be electric.
It would.
It would.
And none of the candidates have been preparing over the last couple of weeks for anything other than who they're expecting to be on stage. If all of a sudden Trump shows up, it sort of mixes
all the game plans is gone.
Yeah, it changes everything. But he's not going to do it, according to every source that we have. He's just not going to do it. And I'm a little bit surprised. You know, Tucker Carlson's obviously huge name. I'm just a little bit surprised he's doing it for a show that's already taped. You know,
yeah, it's not live,
right? So it's. I mean, is it really going to be that interesting?
Again, so I'm not a campaign strategist for his team on the Trump campaign right now, but I just have this feeling that if he shows up and he were dominant, I think that would freeze the numbers.
It would end it.
Yeah, in a way that basically no other thing could. But I think by not showing up, it allows oxygen for all of his opponents. And I think a lot of the numbers are going to shift dramatically after this first debate.
I think so. You know, that's the thing. The calculation here is interesting because you look at where the numbers are despite the backdrop of 4 indictments, you know, some of them quite serious, others frivolous. And his poll numbers continue to rise, if anything. And your immediate calculus, if you're in Team Trump, has got to be like, well, why would we ever endanger any of that? Just sit out and let these guys do what they're going to do. It doesn't change anything. But on the other hand, I think you both make decent points here, which is in any normal environment, when you have people out working their asses off to try to earn votes and introduce themselves, and the juxtaposition of that is either nothing or a very safe audience, or even worse, you know, getting booked into county jail in Atlanta, it just provides a different backdrop. Like, I understand that everything's all fucked up. And if you would have told me 10 years ago that this was happening in American politics, I would have said you're nuts. There's no way that somebody could compete with that. I mean, it would be like, what's his name from Youngstown, Ohio? Trafficant. Like James Trafficant all of a sudden being like the Democratic nominee for president because of the legal issues he was dealing with as a congressman, and like immediately he had to resign and everything else. It just feels like it has transcended all of the norms of politics to the point where I'm not sure what's up and down here and if it makes any difference whatsoever. I mean, you think it would, but like my concern is if I'm in Team Trump, I'm looking at that and I'm like, is gravity ever going to reassert itself? Yeah. Like, do you want to go out and make sure it doesn't or not? And like, if it does, to your point that you just made, he could go put this thing on ice. It's like being in the fourth quarter of a football game. Totally. You're up by a couple of touchdowns and you got the ball. Do you throw the deep slant to see if you can put another one on the board and make this thing over? Or do you just run the ball and try to burn clock? Feels like it's burning clock.
In the Trump of 2015, end of the summer, beginning of the fall, 2015, he's throwing the deep slants. This is a different... The campaign, I think this Trump campaign, we've talked about it over and over again. I think this Trump campaign is probably one of the best, if not the best, on the map right now. But the Trump himself is a candidate. He's a little more cautious than he was the first time around. And I don't know what it is. It's like It's like he's only responding. There's
I think
no offense.
But I think it's discipline. I think the thing that they've actually, I mean, look, you're never going to have a disciplined Donald Trump. But from a campaign standpoint, he's got some seriously wily vets around him at this point. And choosing where you engage has always been an issue for him, right? I mean, he's engaged like on judges from Indiana where he didn't need to. You know, like he basically takes a swing at everything in campaigns past, and it's hurt him with the center of the electorate. He's not doing that this time around.
So y'all play that board game Risk before?
Sure.
I'm sure everyone's played Risk, hopefully. Sometimes you get to a point in the game, if you've got a solid lead, let's say you've been holding like North America and South America, and everyone else has been squabbling along, fighting with small armies. There comes a point where we have to make the decision, why don't I just clean the map out and take it, right?
Yeah.
You've big enough lead, you've got enough armies ready to go. Why don't I just squash everybody and put this away? And I think that is a question he could have asked himself at this moment, is do I show up to this debate? Do I just end this?
Yeah.
Do I end this now? And of course, the like least risky approach would be skip it, no downside to it. But like Ashbrook said, like 2015 Trump would have showed up and just body slammed everybody.
No, he would have landed on the plaza in a helicopter.
Yeah.
The RNC would have said, no, we have plans for that plaza. And he would have said, yeah, I know what your plan for the plaza is. My helicopter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, he would have done it in the biggest way possible. And
There's something. I guess,
obviously he's winning, so he's doing something.
Yeah,
right.
he's doing something right. And I hate to sort of critique this or Monday morning quarterback these decisions, because obviously so far what he's done has worked to great fanfare. But there's something weird going on that you can't quite put your finger on. You take the CBS poll, for example, and it asks like if honesty and trustworthiness is important to you, who's your candidate, and it looks like the ballot does. It's like a 40-point spread of people supporting Trump. Now, I would wager to guess that even Trump's most ardent supporters do not think that this man is a virtue of honesty and truth overall. Like, yes, he's told the truth about a number of public policy issues as president that normal people would not do. Maybe that's a reflection of that. But like, I mean, come on.
But to me, that was,
you know what I mean?
That was an interesting component of this poll. This is from the CBS News YouGov poll that measured, who do you trust the most? Among Trump supporters, 71% said that they trust him more than any other source over friends and family, over conservative media figures, over religious leaders, who are at 42%, while 71% trust Trump. I think that's incredible.
See, that's what I mean by there's something strange here.
I think it's support in the sense that how you said that Trump is seen as an instrument of revenge against injustice.
Right.
Like, if you believe conservatives are getting screwed, how do you respond? And so many people say, okay, if conservatives are getting screwed, I will vote for Trump. Like, that is my shot back, my FU to the situation that conservatives find themselves in. And I think that's what I get from these numbers. It's not that, like, yes, I trust Trump more than I trust,
my family.
Yeah, my father. But I think I see this as, okay, it's become abundantly clear, especially with this Hunter Biden situation, especially with like this Alvin Bragg, like, there are two tiers of justice in the system. So no matter what, the answer is going to be Trump.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, look, we're in such an unprecedented situation that I sort of hesitate to even bring up the last 20 years of politics and how these things have played out. But, my inclination early on in my career was, if something feels like it's elevating above gravity, it is. And it's at some point that's going to change, because there is no absolute truth in 330 million Americans that is not true, that just hovers there forever. It just doesn't work that way. It hasn't historically. And so you look at some of this stuff and you got to say, like, is there an element of this electorate that is supporting Trump? And this is beyond the 30% that I think, like, as he says, you could go out in the middle of Times Square and shoot somebody and would support him. I believe that to be true. But beyond that, what takes you to 30 to 50? And out of that group, like, is what we're going to see on Wednesday important? And I kind of get the sense that it is. I don't know if it's determinative, and I don't know if something changes overnight as a result, but I do think it's the unofficial kickoff for that 20% marker to have opinions about things other than what they see on their TV and in their newspaper, which entirely revolves around Donald J. Trump.
Right. It's also it's interesting. I mean, it's flat interesting that you have all of these people once again standing on a debate stage, wrestling for the chance to maybe be the candidate for president, and if something happens to Trump. And by the way, the backdrop here is 4 indictments, and so Trump has the big lead. But there are a lot of voters who even support Trump who are like, well, what happens if, I don't know how the laws work. What if the Democrats really, really screw him and we're looking for a completely different nominee? You're going to have a lot of people who are more interested. And I'm sure that this Trump Tucker recording is going to have a multi-million view count, and the press is going to write that. But in reality, your typical voter out there who's a Republican primary voter, even if they support Trump, is interested in what's about to be said on the debate stage.
No question about it. That's part of the reason why we're happy to be a part of it. So for those OG listeners to the program, you know that Hollywood Henne has been a stalwart part of our production here, but she hasn't been on in a while. And I don't think she's been on actually since we've had the new studio.
No, yeah.
No, just except for the one time when I did the ending for Smug when he was gone. That was it.
So, without further ado, the intro to Hollywood Henne. So, Henne.
Yes.
We've talked about a range of Hollywood issues.
Yes.
While you've been here.
Mm-hmm.
And your breadth and depth of expertise is really quite something.
Mm-hmm.
The one thing that perhaps you were most passionate about was the Free Britney movement.
That's right.
We are wondering, because we have nothing but our commitment to honesty and integrity here on the Ruthless Friday program, whether or not there are any regrets.
No, I have 0 regrets.
0 regrets?
Really?
I 100% have 0 regrets. Yeah.
So this is in the wake of news came out over the previous weekend that essentially Britney's gone wild. It says,
no.
This is from a CNN article. Britney Spears says
CNN, so you know it's right.
So you know it's true.
Britney says she couldn't take the pain anymore as she addresses divorce from saying the man
That's going wild?
Well,
she's getting a divorce?
Well, hold on. The wildness, I would submit, and perhaps I'm wrong about this, but she's done quite a few videos.
Yeah.
She installed a stripper pole in her house after filing for divorce. She filmed videos on said stripper pole.
Right.
She's interacted with, it seems like, according to a publication here, someone other man.
She has it was like her manager, Cade Hudson, and some of their friends. She went over to his house.
Wait, Cade Hudson was hanging out there?
Cade.
Oh, okay.
And
a different Hudson.
I was going to say, it's like almost famous. They're just like full Zeppelin.
And they were just hanging out, getting a little rowdy. I will say, I don't agree with
her life choices?
With her life choices per se. I'm not saying that.
You're not going to endorse the stripper
Right.
pole.
I'm not saying that those are good things. However, I feel like she can do whatever she wants and who cares?
Sure. But of course, look, the whole run up to the Free Britney movement was that her father had a conservatorship on her estate.
Yes.
And
her person, don't forget.
And her person.
Yes.
And her person. And the argument was, of course, that this is a grown woman who has agency and can do whatever she wants, and she's thoughtful and wants to live her own life. Very clearly not thoughtful. That piece of it's fallen by the wayside. Adult and live her own life, for sure.
For sure.
I think just for the core Britney fans who you are amongst.
Yes.
This we're still kind of where we needed to be.
I just feel like you have to step back to realize just how traumatic her conservatorship was. So, you have this girl who reaches fame and fortune at the age of 16, which is what they say, when you become famous, that's when your social emotional intelligence kind of stops. So let's say she's basically acting as a 16-year-old in an adult body, right?
I actually didn't realize that.
They say as soon as you become famous, that's the age that you are for the rest of your life, kind of.
Interesting.
So she gets that fame, which in and of itself is just ridiculous and would mess with anybody. Her fame is inextricably tied to her being this Lolita type character where she has to be pure but also enticing and sexy, which messes with your head.
Sure.
Then she goes on to have the love of her life, Justin Timberlake. Just that
didn't work out.
So she goes a little, she thought she was going to marry that guy, goes a little nutty. You know, things happen. And her parents not her parents. She goes a little crazy with all of her fame, right? It would go to anybody's head. She's a little messed up. Instead of being like, hey, you know what? We love our daughter and we're going to take you out. We're going to take you back to Louisiana. Maybe you should get some counseling. Maybe you should, let's take you out of the fame world for a little bit. No, they use her as their personal ATM. They put her on all these meds, which I'm not a doctor, but I don't believe she needed to be on lithium at the time.
Right.
You know, that fries
seems
your
like a
brain.
lot.
I'm just saying, like, those can fry your brain forever, right? But like, they need to keep her crazy enough to be in the conservatorship.
So I mean, she probably wouldn't go to Louisiana peacefully. This is a person who, like, everyone saw the video. She like shaved her head. She's like hitting cars with weapons.
This is when she was hanging out with Lohan.
I disagree. I think
her up.
I
She's
think
a
there
threat
were
to herself
people in her life that could have reached her, and none of those people outside of maybe her mom really tried.
But her family treated her
But
like
her family,
she's like
but
a
then
show animal.
right, but then her dad comes in, ruins her life. We think the conservatorship was this benevolent dictatorship where like
They were actually looking out for her interests.
No, they put her in on drugs she shouldn't have been on. They put her in lockdown, like physical lockdown when she shouldn't have been. She has like physical numbness in the right side of her body from some of the treatments that they put her through.
If I had to guess,
and she wasn't even allowed to have coffee. She wasn't allowed to have friends. She couldn't have a phone. I mean, this is like
what,
she couldn't
like
drive
15
her
years of
car.
her life?
Yes. After all, famed conservatorship, like, yeah, the girl has now nobody that she can trust. And is maybe like a little unsure of what she should do.
If I had to guess, the drugs that she takes without doctor's permission are probably doing her a lot worse than the ones that she did with theirs. She attacks. She's a threat to society in general, which is the thing. Like, we've seen she's violent.
We've seen
her
she's
kids
violent. She
there's
dances
two
on a
kids.
pole, and it's like, oh my gosh, you guys, this is too far. Meanwhile,
What's
all
with the
these
two
other
kids? She could hurt
famous
these
girls,
kids.
all
She
these
should be locked up.
I'm sorry, like all these other. Cardi B and WAP and all this stuff like that.
yeah.
Like, I mean, what is the line here that we're drawing that like it's okay for everybody else, but when Britney does it, oh, she's crazy.
Smug draws
She's
a hard
crazy.
line on stripper poles. He hates them. He just can't. He just
They
can't
should all
do
be
it.
locked up.
Again, disclaimer. I'm not for any of this behavior. I think it's not.
So wait, hold on. Before we just sort of like get to the end of this, it seems to me like your take is, of course she's crazy. She was born to be crazy after she became famous.
I'm just saying, of course she has issues. She was beyond famous and locked in a conservatorship where everybody was using and abusing her. And we're like, and then it ends and we're like, oh, she'll go back to the 1990s, Britney. And it's like, no, well, she's been through some stuff now. Like, there's no way. And I just think, like, everyone needs to give it a beat. Like, there needs to be a lot of healing that goes on.
I mean, I called
And honestly, I don't know that after all she's been through, if her like, I don't know what she was on. It's kind of like, is there a normal balance now?
That's why I think she's a threat to society.
It's kind of like Judy Garland. You know, they had her in Wizard of Oz on uppers and downers, and then she was on pills for the rest of her life, and her brain never really recalibrated. It's like, I don't know if you can. I don't know what that's like.
I just want to say, I called it. I said, like, if they get rid of this conservatorship, she's gonna go ham. Sam the man is gonna clean her out, so she's getting a divorce.
But he's not gonna clean her out.
He's gonna get a ton of money.
He was trying to blackmail her to get their prenup redone, and Britney.
This is the husband who's just left.
And Britney and the lawyer were like, no dice. Like,
so out he goes.
And you know what?
He's going to get some money.
For the record, I was always suspect of him because he was there during the conservatorship. And it's like, who are these people that were okay with that crowd and then kind of stayed on?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I was kind of like,
well,
that's
his one thing that we were all very concerned about.
Yeah, we were concerned about him. And
that was the Dudes Rock segment of our deal.
Yes.
It's like Sam ultimately is the one that got
played the long game.
conservatorship.
But now everybody's turning on him.
Now he's out too.
He's going to get at least a few $1 million.
But
she's going to spend the rest of the money on drugs and it's like the end of Casino.
What are you so concerned about? Are you so like, okay, she pops a couple of pills and accidentally gives you a lap dance? Is that the threat to society?
I think you should let the dad and Sam decide what to do with the money.
Oh my gosh.
God, it's just amazing.
Apparently she came out, or a source came out and said that Sam was fine with her during her conservatorship, but when she got out of it, she could call the shots and do what he didn't like it anymore that she was able to kind of
She was
do what
dangerous.
she
She
wanted.
shouldn't be around kids.
Shot caller.
Yeah.
She became a shot
She became
caller.
a shot caller, and He Sam, which is his real name, was out of there.
He Sam.
Which is the way that she addresses him, which is funny because he doesn't like it. And so she, on all of her Instagram posts, calls him He Sam just to like dig at him, and it makes me laugh.
Was she, and I don't know if you know this or not, but like, there's a lot of videos out over the last 6 months that she's produced herself for her own
not
Instagram.
Suitable for
Right.
any of our audience. Don't
Well,
look
not
at
any, but certainly
any.
if
Don't
you're-
look at any of her videos, people.
If you're under the tender age of 18, you
Certainly not.
You should not do
Married men do not look.
And wait, she has kids in the house with herself while she's
No,
doing
her,
that?
her kids are with Federline, like
they're long
possibly
gone.
moving to Hawaii.
I mean, I think that tells you right there.
well,
What,
She
that
can't
he-
be trusted with her kids.
What,
You know,
that
I
he
don't-
got
she should be
custody?
trusted with her money.
I don't think I realized that Britney Spears has children.
Oh, yeah, Federline. Dude,
oh,
yeah.
sweet Ashbrook.
Come on, man.
Well, the
She has
truth
two
is,
sons.
the truth is, if I see celeb news, I usually turn the page.
Oh,
It's just it's my fault. This is why I actually.
you need the
this
updates.
is why I need the updates.
Yeah, because you have daughters. You got.
I do. I got to know this stuff.
Uh-huh.
So she has one kid.
Two sons.
Kids.
Yeah, with Federline.
And this
How
is what
old
she
are these
does.
Kids.
They're teenagers.
Okay, they've been around for a while.
Yeah.
Man, Britney Spears has teenage kids.
Yeah, she's over 40. She's 42 or something like that.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, that makes you feel
I think it's really
old, huh?
time to lock her up. This is a sad story. She's going to hurt other people. And the time is now.
She literally sees no one. She stays in her house all day and does twirly dance videos. And people are like,
Lock her up.
freak out about it.
Lock her up.
She's also like kind of looking a little rough.
Yeah, I don't want to be someone.
But go
She's
ahead.
always going to be hotter than I am. So let's just put that out there.
That's nonsense.
It's
Annabelle.
Britney Spears.
She does not have those glasses.
No.
She does not have these glasses, well, she might. They're vintage Dior. But there's something with her teeth and hair that, like, I feel like she has enough money to fix that.
That
I
stuff
don't.
taken care of. A conservatorship perhaps would have made some kind
You
of
know what?
arrangement.
If only
feel
there was
it
someone to
didn't
help.
It didn't look good then either. Her teeth have been weird for a little while, and I can't figure it out.
And that
I know.
things are not great in the Spears
Yeah,
world.
it's not great, but I still stand by the fact that, like,
Steadfast commitment.
a steadfast commitment that, like, issues don't equal conservatorship.
Okay.
She should not have her dad telling her she can't drive her own car. I mean, like, it went very, very, very far.
This is what we wanted to hear from you,
Yeah,
Henneberg.
she's allowed to be crazy. People are allowed to be crazy.
People-
Kanye's not in a conservatorship. He's crazy, and
Good point.
Yeah.
Good point.
Just saying.
Is there anything else happening out there?
Probably. J-Lo and Ben just their 1-year wedding anniversary they just
See,
celebrated.
dudes continue rocking.
That one is wild.
Sam finished. He's going to clean Brittany out. I don't care what any prenup says. He's going to clean her
not
out.
gonna
Or
clean
else
her
he's
out.
going to write a book, so they're going to have to pay him money to shut up.
And
Ben is back in the house. He's cleaning out J-Lo.
The
You
Ben
can't get a movie.
The Ben will be that. I'm dying to see how long this lasts.
I mean,
Ben and
so
J-Lo.
far so good.
I mean, a year in.
Seems
So,
pretty stable.
Yeah. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Paris Hilton had a kid.
Yeah, I saw
Really?
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a son named
Yeah.
Phoenix.
Yeah.
Just now, like over the
recently.
summer.
It was via surrogate, so you wouldn't know
Oh.
because she still looks fantastic.
Oh.
I don't know. Other
Yeah.
things cooking, but those.
Well, listen.
Britney's really the main thing.
Brittany's
that
the
everybody's
main
talking
thing
about.
is the main thing. We appreciate your
Yeah.
appearance back here, Hollywood
glad to be
Hen.
here.
Always
Thank
great
you.
to have you back.
All right.
Until next time.
See ya. All right, so Germans have a real problem here.
From time to time, every 40,
It's a
50
plague of drunken raccoons that are raiding homes and killing pets. This is according to the Telegraph. A plague of invasive raccoons with a taste for German beer is causing havoc by raiding homes and killing treasured pets. Homeowners have faced repair bills of up to 10,000 euro after returning from a holiday and finding the animals have destroyed their kitchens. Germany's National Hunting Association says that it killed a record 200,000 raccoons last year in an attempt to control the population, up from less than 10,000 2 decades ago. Wow. Scientists say that the growth is almost exponential. An unbelievably adaptable animal that attempts to control it through hunting have had adverse effects of increasing its already prodigious birth rate. Boys,
Raccoons are dangerous.
They're bad animals.
They are absolutely
Is
dangerous.
there a recommended, an Ashbrook recommended technique?
There is. And you know, what's funny is the idea for the banana pool comes from an old raccoon trap.
Oh my gosh.
Really?
An old raccoon trap. if you have raccoons in your yard, dig a hole in the ground, put a garbage can in the hole, fill it with water, and cover it with trash or nuts or something, rancid meat, something that raccoons will want. They dive into the trash can, they drown in the water. It is, and
I'm going to love
tried and true.
One of our listeners, they're going to rent a digger, and the wife's like watching in the backyard. Oh, this guy's digging a pit to put the trash can in. Like, it's fine, honey.
But the reason why you have
killing
to,
the raccoons.
Reason why you have to do it that way is because they're nasty animals. I don't know if
they're
you guys-
horrific. They're disgusting.
They have the sharpest claws.
Oh no, they kill
They
the
are
shit out of
the
dogs
most
too.
aggressive thing.
Like, you do not want your pet out with a raccoon. They will take it out.
Yeah, you really don't. I mean, we had friends with a chicken coop in their backyard, and they had an 11-year-old son that every morning his
Oh, my
job
God.
was to walk outside and feed the chickens. One morning he walked outside, and it looked like Freddy Krueger had been in the building all night. It was just chicken guts and blood all over the place, and he came back in crying. He's 11 years old. He lives in the suburbs.
And it was raccoons?
And it was raccoons that tore him apart.
We got to teach him. That's the day. It's like, you have to make a vow to me today.
Well,
You'll kill every raccoon you ever see in your life.
You know,
Never forget this moment.
My friend did take care of those raccoons.
That's the thing. Is they are such a menace. So this article, it continues, this story rather. This is from the Times in the UK. It says that Belgium is fighting an invasion of raccoons by trapping, castrating, and sterilizing them. It says raccoons are native to North America.
Thank you for stopping him there.
They're trapping and castrating and sterilizing them as if, like, performing a vasectomy on a damn raccoon is the answer here.
Right. This is the problem with Belgium.
Oh.
You're going to put them under and grab an X-Acto knife to change their ability to reproduce rather than just dunk them.
So I want to get through
Throw them in the North Sea, for crying out loud.
I want to get to that because the story of how insidious these raccoons are continues. So it says here, raccoons are native to North America, but were released into the wild in Germany under the Nazis. And they started appearing in Belgium in the 80s. So, like, clearly these are Nazi raccoons. They've, remembered their history, and they're going to start invading Belgium. They might go to Poland. Sterilizing is not going to be enough. There's only one way to deal with these.
These are Third Reich motivated raccoons.
I mean, you got to machine gun the bastards until they learn.
I think you need to put these things all out of their misery.
Yeah.
There's no surgery to be had on something like this.
Right.
It's wild to me that they even came out like, what? You're going to go through the trouble of corralling this filthy mongrel of an animal and like take it out and then perform intricate surgery?
Yeah,
they're for sure putting it under, right? I mean, because PETA wouldn't let him do without.
Give it a nice meal afterwards, nurse it back to health, make sure that it's okay, and then set it back onto somebody else's garbage cans in Belgium. This is why the Belgians are falling apart.
Yeah. They've already done a pincer into Belgium. They're going to try to take the Sudetenland before these people realize, you can't abuse these people. You've got to take them out. Every single one of them.
Can we talk a little bit about the fact that they're drunk?
I mean, that's the impressive thing.
So this guy Berthold Langenhorst, he says the raccoons are funny and clever, and they like beer.
I think Langenhorst likes beer too. That would be my guess.
He described how he recently watched them knocking beer bottles over at the lake to get the liquid inside. He estimated 1,000 raccoons inside of Berlin, where they've been found living in state high schools, boarding buses, and increasingly in allotment gardens.
This is how it begins. You've got 1,000 of these in Berlin at some beer hall, having a great time. Next thing you know, they're starting to invade other countries. We've seen this story before, folks. 1,000 in a beer hall. Oh, they seem nice at the time. You better wait. They're up to no good.
A couple of bottles of suds hanging out with your buddies. Next thing you know, you're Al Qaeda of raccoons.
Right. They're marching on France.
Oh my God!
What if this is their strategy?
This is their strategy.
What if this is the way the Germans are coming back?
Oh, dude, you got to keep an eye. We got. The climate change chick didn't get her way, so they were like, "Fuck it, let's release the raccoons." Oh my God, incredible. All right, so we also want to get back to some serious news. This story will blow your mind. And it never gets the kind of attention that it should, But this is hats off. First to Politico, which reported it, which it was a very, very good story. And Axios has done a follow-up on it. But it turns out that Hunter Biden's lawyers, now ex-lawyer, wanted to put the president of the United States on the stand as basically a leverage play against the government when they were considering building charges against Hunter Biden. And there's many, many quotes. Like, you should go to the Politico story and read it to begin with, because it's very, very good. This is Betsy Woodruff Swan, who wrote...
Longtime reporter. She, I mean, among the most prolific reporters of this day. I mean, she's worked her way up.
She's worked her way up. She's very, very good at what she does. And she's well-sourced, obviously. And they released a whole bunch of documents that showed correspondence going back and forth. And it turns out when the government was basically like, I think we're going to charge Hunter, they're like, well, okay, well, we're going to have a character witness here on this. And it turns out it's the President of the United States. So you go up and tell your boss that that's going to happen. And they were like,
Incredible.
And you can see throughout the piece, and there's like many little like quotes and anecdotes back and forth, but you can understand now what was impossible to understand a couple weeks ago about why it is that the government was so reticent to go full hog on Hunter Biden, because they're also dealing with lawyers who are very willing to leverage the current sitting president of the United States against any charges. I mean, it's really unbelievable.
It is wild.
I mean, to be honest with you, the whole thing played out like an episode of Suits. I don't know if you watch that show, but it's like the most daring, ridiculous, lawyerly conduct that couldn't possibly work, but it somehow worked.
I mean, I think that is part of, maybe this was the one time in a moment of clarity Hunter realized, maybe if I make sure the big guy goes down with me and I kick 10% to him, this works out. It's like my get out of jail free card is, I'll take the big guy with me. And they called the bluff.
Well, I mean, he clearly has to be briefed on the tactics because it's involving his father. But whatever it was, I mean, it didn't come to fruition, but whatever it was, clearly they knew that that was the ultimate leverage play on the Department of Justice reports to Joe Biden. And it worked.
Yeah, and everybody who's working for Joe Biden at the Department of Justice or in the media was like, oh, well, you can't have Joe Biden on this. It's a constitutional crisis. Yeah, well, constitutional crisis. You simply can't trigger a constitutional crisis by Joe Biden being on the stand. And it's like, I've never heard word one of constitutional crisis when it came to lying about Russiagate.
Nope.
Never heard word one of constitutional crisis when it came to lying about every other aspect of Donald Trump's presidency.
No, it's a degenerate son that has somehow sparked a constitutional crisis. Are you kidding me?
It's incredible.
I mean, it's wild, but you've got to read these stories because you begin to see how things became what they currently are. And you understand why it is that there is a mixture there between thumb on the scale and actual probably fear of employment. At one point I read a quote in the Betsy Swan story about a lawyer basically saying to a prosecutor that this would be career suicide if you charge my client. And he's playing it up as heavy as he can, and they're like, he's probably right.
Isn't that crazy? That's a mess.
Probably right. I mean, that is the system. So
he's right, and that's what's
when you're
wrong.
Thinking about the two systems of justice thing. It's not as simple as, well, this person's a Democrat and we don't charge them. This person's a Republican and we do. You also enter into it a whole bunch of defense attorneys who, in this case in particular, are willing to go to the absolute fucking mat to make sure that a maximum pain is bestowed upon the people who are trying to bring charges in this case. And you can see how the two systems of justice begin to arise because it's not illogical. It's not purely partisan. It has elements of ambitious young prosecutors trying to make their way up in a Democratic administration. It has elements of defense attorneys who want to represent their clients' interests, who are willing to like burn the whole thing down in order to secure innocence from their client. So, I mean, It is ugly.
I think what you're saying is very, very important, because if you're wondering how can a guy allegedly, how can a guy allegedly not pay his taxes, break all these gun laws, and have some crooked scheme where he's kicking money back to his dad, who's a huge figure in the American government, and not get charged with anything? If you're wondering how that happens, what you just said is exactly the way it works.
That's it. Now, you look at, and this is the thing that you all need to think about, because Smug, you've got a very definitive opinion on this. I waver back and forth, but the way we've looked at how Republican administrations and Democratic administrations have administered justice throughout our history, Republican administrations don't deal with this shit. They don't deal with this shit. They actually believe what's written in the Constitution. They believe in the whole, one nation under God thing too. And all of that stuff does not affect the leverage of who's employing whom. If they did, we certainly wouldn't have had Russiagate or Robert Mueller or anything else like that. We just wouldn't have had it, because it would have just been squashed overnight. Republicans have basically tried to carry out justice where it resides. These guys do not.
That's why I think, there can be no unilateral disarmament. I think the next time Republicans are in a position to, it's time to return the favor. The only way that this system ends is when it becomes untenable for everyone. This kind of like mutually assured destruction of where right now Dems alone are exercising the government in a way to help themselves and punish their enemies. That's essentially what their party stands for at this point. Not on any issue. They believe in nothing. They're nihilists. But for so long, you've seen Republicans be like, oh, well, we can't do that. That would be wrong. Yes, the Democrats are doing it, but we have to maintain principles. Principles are good up to a point, unless they just lead you getting slaughtered. It's like, you don't want to end up against a wall being like, well, imagine if a Democrat did this to us. You know what I mean? Like this is the situation that ends up happening, is when you allow one side to do whatever they want and say, in the interest of following principles, we're not going to do the same thing to them. It has to be make them suffer the same way. And then there comes a detente where it's just like, okay, we got to stop this because it sucks for everybody here. But as long as they can enjoy it and enjoy watching their enemies, the conservatives, suffer under this system, they're going to keep at it.
I think that's the best explanation you've had of your point of view, to be honest. That feels right.
That's how I roll.
It feels like, usually it's a little crazier than that. And like
it's that simple. It's that simple.
That seemed like you knew what you were doing there. All right, do we get into this subtitles thing? Here's the thing. I've gone nuts about this, and Axios has got this piece about why young people can't get enough of subtitles. We've covered it previously on the program. I mean, maybe I'm dating myself. I think subtitles are insane. Like, unless you are literally deaf, what are you doing with that? Or if you're in like a bar setting where you have music over the top, subtitles could be maybe helpful.
Right, or if you're in a house where kids are running around with their friends, and you're just trying
to
tell
the kids to be quiet. That was the argument that doesn't work. Just tell them to be quiet. Everyone calm down. Sit down and be quiet, children.
It turns out it's generational entirely.
Yeah.
You mean the boomers watch with subtitles and Gen Z does not?
No, it's the opposite.
You're kidding.
No.
I would have never guessed.
Yeah, it says here in the Axios article, it says that TikTok helped normalize captions for young media consumers, and says now more than half of Gen Z and millennial media consumers prefer subtitles. More than half. It says 59% of Gen Z respondents and 52% of millennials said they use subtitles. Gen Z males especially are watching with subtitles, 61%.
Well, I guess I'm glad to know that Gen Z is capable of reading. I've been very concerned about this for a long time, but I guess this proves it, that they can read.
Can I tell you why this makes me so angry?
Why is that?
So, look, I consume media because I like not only to hear what people are saying, but how they're saying it. And maybe it's just me or people like me, but you also catch a little something in the glint of their eye, whether they're looking up and left when they're making up an answer, whether they got weird facial expressions when they're expressing something that they feel like they're on defense over. You can read something on a person's face based upon what it is that they're saying. And like good actors, for example, in good movies have this down perfect.
It's like, Zoomers watching A Few Good Men on their phone, and they just read the caption, Jack Nicholson be like, you can't handle the truth. They're like, okay, you can't handle the truth. You know what I mean? Like, they will miss out on all that. Every moment from The Godfather, every one of those lines.
Like, if you can't see
none of that.
If you can't see Michael's face, Or if you can't see Jack Nicholson's face when he's delivering the "you can't handle the truth," like, you don't get the story.
Nothing
you don't
matters to these
understand
kids.
it.
So you're saying they don't listen to the audio at
They
all?
can't. You can't. Well,
the
no,
audio is down.
They
It's
can listen
only
to
reading?
it, but they're not. But they're reading rather than looking at the face and the eyes
Exactly.
and the expression.
Yep. That's why subtitles are truly detrimental to especially to films, where it's like, okay, like chances are, especially like films like Oppenheimer, you've got a director who's completely obsessed with making the film as beautiful as possible, and instead of seeing 90% of the picture, you're just reading. It's like, just go home and read the book, then, dude. Go and read the book.
No, it's unbelievable to me. Like, I can't understand what the future is if that's where and to be honest with you, it also interjects with my very serious concerns about the COVID era, where you have a whole bunch of kids who were born into masked society, who in their formative years of trying to read expressions and understand emotion based upon what people are saying, couldn't do it because their whole face was covered.
Yeah.
And like, the combination of these two things scares the shit out of me.
That's a really good point. That's a great point.
It really scares the shit out of me. Like, how is it that it's not important for a person to look at someone and understand what they're trying to emote in addition to what they're trying to say?
I've actually noticed this. Essentially, anyone under the age of 25, good luck getting eye contact. Like, if you're having a discussion with them, I'm dead serious.
Really?
Like, especially when we're on the road, you know, if you have a discussion with anyone under the age of 25, they just don't make eye contact. They'll like stare at their shoes the whole time.
Because they're just tweeting at you through their voice.
I don't know what it is. I think a lot of it might be like the socialization that you get, and that's why they prefer to like, just watch the video on TikTok and read the words. But it's like, and COVID, I think, furthered this gulf that exists of where these folks, it's horrible because a lot of these teenagers, a full year of their lives, let alone like they weren't even allowed to graduate with their friends. They were all doing classes through Zoom. That socialization gulf exists.
I mean,
I'm telling you, there are some kids rebelling against that.
I hope so.
It is not
I met
universal.
one in Iowa. I met a kid in Iowa who showed up at the bar we were at, who, he's there with his mom, so he might have been under 21. And like, this kid was all eye contact.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he was great. And he would talk to me about the things that he liked about the show and how it illuminated a piece of politics that are important to him that, he doesn't get anywhere else and all that. And I was like, hey, man, like, shoot me a note. And I gave him my number. And I've been in contact with him. Like, that kind of shit makes a difference to people like me. And like, I'm not some significant guy who can king make for everybody, but I imagine there's a whole bunch of people like me in my age demographic who don't look past the fact that if you can't have a eye-to-eye conversation with somebody, you ain't getting any further in this conversation.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. No, there's a generational divide here.
Oh, man.
It all ties together, yeah.
Oh, yeah. All right, so Kamala. Jesus. I don't know if you guys have noticed this. This has just been hysterical to me. They're trying to remake her entirely.
This is the 30 or 40th time.
Yeah, version 42.
It's unbelievable. They're like, well, everybody hates her 2.0, 3.0, 4.0,
Right.
5.0.
Right. Not everybody's cut out for this line of work.
Right. So here we are at 12.0. Kamala Harris tries to reshape her public image ahead of 2024. And this is according to Politico. All eyes on her. I doubt that. But that's been true of Harris for a while now. No, not in my world.
Yeah.
And the view has often not been kind. Well, I agree with that.
An accurate line.
Yeah. Her tenure as Joe Biden's number 2 has not been known for relaxed and warm moments like those in Chicago. Instead, Harris's team has largely been marked by stilted performances at public events at odds with the uninhibited interrogator she was known for in the Senate. First of all, she wasn't known for a goddamn thing.
No, she was not.
She wasn't known for anything.
Great point.
It was just like Barack Obama in that she was there for a cup of coffee in order to try to elevate her own stuff to the next deal. Any other interpretation of that is absolute fiction. Like, she was nothing. I mean, nothing. There wasn't a serious person who was like, oh, the Harris staff is weighing in.
Right.
Let's make sure that we pay attention to that.
Right.
Nobody was doing that.
Right.
But in addition to that, now we've laid that as a baseline that she was that. And now she has got this horrible problem. They fueled whispers, Politico says, about whether she'll be a drag on the re-election ticket as 2024 race is heated up. Now her political future and quite possibly the success of the Democratic ticket in 2024 hinges on a simple question. Is it possible for Kamala Harris to make a second impression?
Quick timeout. Can we get a count, Ashbrook, on how many of these articles have been written? Like, Kamala's going to reshape her image. Like, this is year 3? Year 3. How many of these articles have we gotten over the past 3 years of like the team over at Kamala HQ is trying to reshape her image and make it so people don't think she's a horrible person anymore? There's at least been 50 of them. I think we should come up with an official count. Yeah, and how does she get?
We should come up with an official count.
The one surprising bit of competence out of her team is how do they keep getting publications to write this story? Like, how do you keep getting a publication to write, here comes the new Kamala?
But also,
she's not going to be a weirdo.
Baked into the baseline that we just talked about, that somehow she was an ascendant star who is like a fierce prosecutor and thought of that somehow that has eroded. Right. That never existed.
No, well, I mean, you got to remember, it's just she is a Democrat. And so all of the baseline stuff that her staff wants in the story will be in the story. That's just the way it works for Democrats. And
so the only question is like, in the drawback perhaps is conceding that she isn't the most popular figure in American politics. That's the battle that we now fight.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because it's not the concession it might sound like, as you say, because even if the Democrat concedes that they might not be the most popular politician, let me tell you how it's framed by the media, and I will read directly from Politico.
Okay.
Kamala Harris seeks a second act as GOP attacks intensify.
Oh, God. Here we go.
Like, the only reason people think she's a moron is because Republicans attack her. It has nothing to do with her. Like there are, how many Democrats are there in this country? We don't agree with them. But surely, out of the 150 million whatever Democrats there are in this country, there has to be one who is more capable of being a better vice president than her. There has to be. I'm sure.
At least 149 million, I think.
I mean, it's just so true. It's unbelievable. It's like, Hank Truman is here. It's just you misunderstood.
Right. If it wasn't for the partisanship fueled originally by Rush Limbaugh and the move to horrible people on the right.
I mean, it is true. And they go through this like endless thing about how she's now attacking everybody. And recall, and this was one of our issues with Tim Scott, frankly, recall how the non-issue about the curriculum in Florida, that she'd seized upon that and like rabidly, unfairly talked about how DeSantis alone had put in education curriculum within Florida that had basically said that slavery provided skills for the slaves that helped them later in life, which was like absolutely unfair and completely ridiculous.
Well, there was a lot of discussion about Tim Scott and his campaign basically just taking all of Kamala's attacks and then running with them.
Well,
like a week later, though, the whole thing had been she launched it.
That's the thing.
I think it goes to her ineffectiveness.
Right.
She launched this attack at a public forum where everybody was paying attention, and immediately the guy who wrote it, a esteemed African American scholar who's got more degrees than a thermometer, was all over cable news explaining exactly what it is that he meant when he was providing this curriculum, and the story went away. And then Tim Scott showed up 4 days later and attacked it, and it became a bigger issue. And then like anybody who's supporting Kamala or Democratic side was like, see what an attack dog she is.
Yeah.
Do you remember what happened a couple of weeks before she launched that one-off thing? Gavin Newsom was on the cover of Politico. And there was all these rumors about how he's going to debate Ron DeSantis and he's the next, and so Kamala Harris's team sees that and they're like, well, we can't let Gavin Newsom look like he's the actual president in waiting on the Democratic side. I have to stand up and do something.
And then Tim Scott's team's like, no, we'll debate him first with these talkers.
And like, it is what it is, and that thing is way in the rearview mirror. But it's a good vignette as to how ineffective it actually took Tim Scott to make that a real issue. It wasn't Kamala who made it. But listen to that. So behind the scenes, Harris has vented her frustration about the customs of Washington and the Beltway's obsession with conventional wisdom to close allies.
The customs of what?
Hold on,
She's fighting against Washington.
Hold on about that. At the same time, she accepts the increased scrutiny. There's long been consensus inside Harris's inner circle that the vice president needs to get out of Washington to hit the road more. More outreach and handshaking. Less time on Capitol Hill. We're like
go there.
We're like the inference there is that she's like a creature of Capitol Hill, where nobody even knows her fucking name.
No.
Like, I mean, to say that this vice president is out of her depth in Capitol Hill is the most like understated statement of all time. She has no clue. She couldn't persuade Bernie Sanders to back his own budget if she wanted to. I mean, it just doesn't. It doesn't work, but now, like, well, she's got to get outside. She's such a policy wonk, guys.
Every sentence that was written about her in this context has been written about some other politician, sold by some other press secretary, trying to circumvent the traditional Beltway media filter. You know what I mean?
Yes.
It's like, it's such a tried and true thing, and they're trying their level best, but she's a complete moron.
Yeah, she is.
And
That's the whole problem.
You cannot pretend it's otherwise.
It's not just an indictment of politics. It's not just an indictment of, like, political communications. It's the indictment of PR in general. Mm-hmm. Which is like, these are the levers that these idiots at these big firms pull that they think is like, oh, well, here's the first talking point is that, she's entirely underneath the scrutiny of the Beltway. She's a belt. Well, really, people like her outside the Beltway.
Yeah, they like her.
Nobody fucking likes her. Look at the poll numbers. There's not a single person who likes her. In fact, if there's any base that this woman has, it's inside the goddamn Beltway, not out.
So here's my guess. I guess this is...
It's just unbelievable.
This is why there's so many articles. Is like, so Kamala's team, every Monday morning they meet, and like, she spent the past week being an idiot and doing crazy shit and saying weird shit. And so every Monday morning they're like, okay guys, what's our plan this week? And someone's like, let's just do a story about how Kamala's 2.0 is about to roll up. We're going to change things and people are going to like her. And they're like, everyone cool with that? Yeah, let's try that again.
And by the way, like, let's do this. You imagine like a 9 o'clock Monday meeting after a particularly tough week, and they're like, by Wednesday of this week, we're going to put together an action plan. It's an action plan. And what we need is a narrative and an action plan that is a 4-step product to get to the end result, which is America knows Kamala for who Kamala is. I can save them the time. America does know who Kamala is.
100%.
They do. They do. In the end, people know that she is a vacuous, ambitious, completely overmatched human for this level of politics. And to be honest with you, it's sad that we have a society that sort of rewards it. Mm-hmm. She is now vice president of the United States for one reason and one reason alone. And that reason is because Joe Biden told the American people that he was going to put an African-American woman on the ticket. He promised that. That's how he got voted in South Carolina. That's how they coalesced the rest of the Democratic Party around him.
When Kamala couldn't even make it to Iowa.
Right. She didn't even make it to Iowa. And then you look at the rest of the ticket, white dudes and Amy Klobuchar. So where are your choices? Right? They started floating like House members who you wouldn't honestly, and this is not specific to the House members that they floated, I'm just saying a lot of members in general, you wouldn't hire to mow your lawn. Mm-hmm. And they were floating these people as if they were going to be the vice president, which is ridiculous because there's only one person on the national stage, and it was Kamala Harris, who happened to call this guy a racist on stage in front of everybody. And she's like, yes, you're the choice. You're the choice.
It's incredible.
And that's how she is where she is. Let's not pretend like it's anything else. Let's not pretend like she was once a very important prosecutor who's now all of a sudden lost her way and the American people can't figure it out. No, she is exactly what she is.
You know, and one of the lines I love in this story is where it's like, but privately, former and current aides acknowledge that her focus at the beginning was on making sure it was clear she was on Team Biden. She's not Gavin Newsom. She's not looking to supplant Joe Biden. She's on his team.
And that was right when Biden was like, well, we got a border czar here.
Yeah.
So,
Exactly. Well, it's funny you say that because this story goes on. It's like she spoke in legalese, first of all. Like her big speech about time and space.
Yeah,
like they're saying,
there's no legalese.
She's just an attorney. She just, she's a prosecutor. Like that's the way she thinks. That's what she does. And it's like she's an idiot. She spoke in legalese, often seemed cautious and struggled to find issues that highlighted her talents, allies say.
Yeah, well, I've often thought that she is indistinguishable from Earl Warren and John Marshall, but in this case, I suppose that perhaps an additional flair is necessary. Oh, it's completely ridiculous. All right. So that's enough about Kamala. We've got one more story here before we get to our interview that I think is absolutely essential. We talked about this last year, and Smug, I think you forgot about this.
I had earlier until I saw it in the doc. You guys were like, no, we already discussed this before.
So Sanna Marin, this is the former Finnish prime minister.
Mm-hmm.
For those of you who are unaware, she's now 37. I'm not sure how old she was when she was first elected. Low 30s, right?
Yeah, she was at the time the youngest woman elected world leader, I believe. Like that was the record that she had.
I think that's right.
Mm-hmm.
And seeking to preclude myself from appearing sexist in any way, I will say she did stand out from a crowd in terms of your European leaders. She was very young, exceedingly attractive, and got in a lot of trouble when she was the prime minister because she'd go to rave parties and stuff.
Yeah, I think, isn't that, she got caught at some party or something and the photos got posted on Instagram or something?
She was constantly a problem.
Yeah.
Because she was
But the thing is that the public didn't have any issue with it.
Now they were like,
that was the funny thing.
Send her back.
No, before she started, Finland was not in NATO. After she left, Finland's in NATO.
And to be honest with you, look, if you're Finland or you're any country and Trump is the president, you're like, what are we going to send over there? Is she the worst choice? Not the worst choice.
Right.
Not the worst
Trump's
choice.
going to volunteer himself to go over and mediate.
He's took her very seriously.
Of course he did.
So, according to the New York Post, the party-loving former prime minister of Finland officially ditched her pantsuits for party dresses and crop tops over the weekend, just months after leaving the nation's highest office and her husband.
There you go.
Hey. Sanna Marin, 37, showed off her figure in several stylish and scanty dresses as she joined friends for the Flow Festival, a 3-day musical bender in capital Helsinki. The youngest female world leader in history. That's something, right? A known partier shared numerous pictures of herself while enjoying her politics-free lifestyle in what she called a proper summer vacation. Good for her. Good for her. Huh?
This is going to be another Britney. I can already see.
Wait, hold on.
It's that she's putting the photos up on Instagram. We all know what she was after in the first place. She wasn't trying to help out Finland. She was trying to get Instagram followers.
Yeah, but she
figured getting elected is the way to do it. She's like, okay, I got that out of the way. Time to up the Instagram followers. Ditch the husband.
I'm outraged.
That's what I'm telling you.
I'm outraged.
She waited till after her term was up to go on vacation. Joe Biden does it every week.
She got elected for the Instagram followers. I guarantee it. I'm telling you, folks.
Well, she cuts a better Instagram picture than Joe Biden. I'll just tell you that.
For sure. But I'm telling you, this is going to be another Britney. I see this coming. Same thing all over again.
So you recommend a conservatorship?
Probably. That's probably not a bad idea.
I think that's outrageous. I think this is another example of how women in power are looked upon unfairly. She's an attractive young woman who likes to have fun, and I feel like we should reward that kind of thing.
We'll do a follow-up. This is going to be, I'm going to say, within 2 years. This is going to end in disaster.
Oh, you're telling me that we're going to follow her throughout?
This will end in tears.
Really?
And mark my words. In 2 years, this will end in tears.
I think there's a better chance that she's president again before there's tears.
We will stay on top of this story. I'm telling you, it's going to happen.
Okay, Smug. All right. Well, with that, a great segue into one of the kings of the Senate, one of our very good friends, and God made a Grassley, Chuck Grassley. All right, we're here live at the Swine Barn
with the legend, the man himself, Senator Chuck Grassley. Senator, thank you so much for making time for us today.
Well, and thank you for visiting the best state fair in the nation, the Iowa State Fair.
I mean, there's no question about it. This is just an incredible place. We were here 2 years ago.
Yes.
And 2 years ago, we did the tour. Now I feel like it's old home week. We're seeing everybody. We're doing this, but you've been doing this forever. I mean, this is like, you have to feel like everybody here knows you.
Never missed a year since 1979, and I actually come a few years before then. But on a regular basis, I get here at least one day. Last year, I was here 3 days.
Well, I mean, it's the greatest show on earth. And we got huge pigs. I mean, look at the size of that thing.
Yeah.
That is just Is that the way they roll in Iowa? You get pigs like that?
Yeah, that's the king of.
That's the king of all pigs.
Yeah.
Well, listen, I know that we have been interested in everything that you've been up to in Washington. In addition to everything you're doing here in Iowa, Smug in particular is taking great interest in your oversight. And you started the whole investigation into Hunter Biden, into the finances of foreign overseas assets and whether or not they're coming into the Biden family. And you're not a front runner. You're not a show horse. You're a workhorse. Yeah. So not everybody knows, but it started with you basically.
Yeah. So you started the entire investigation that's led us to this point, right? Where we are at right now. And I don't think a lot of folks have followed from the beginning. How did this whole process begin in this investigation?
Well, we had the usual things that you ought to be able to get from the Department of Treasury. Transactions that were so-called flagged, quote-unquote flagged. That doesn't mean that there's something illegal about it, but it's questionable. Mm-hmm. So we asked for those things from the Treasury Department, and even under a Republican presidency, we couldn't get them. So we knew it involved the Cathay Bank in, I don't know, Hong Kong or someplace in China, and we wrote them and said we'd like to have these documents. And we got loads and loads of documents directly from the bank. I said to my staff, how could we possibly get that? And my staff thought that they thought we were subpoenaed them. And we couldn't subpoena because it's a long process in the United States Senate. So we got all these documents. So a couple years ago, Johnson and I were able to show these documents where Hunter Biden was getting $100,000 a month on several different documents. We showed those documents on the floor of the United States Senate. So that's the first time that the public knew that possibly he was getting money from some Chinese engagement. In this case, an energy company called CEFC, I think is the name of the company. Wow. And they had contacts with Russian military, Russian intelligence, Communist Party, just everything that ought to raise a red flag among people that are watching this stuff in the United States government. Now, I'm very thankful that Republicans took over the House of Representatives, where they got subpoenas, and they're going deeper and deeper than Johnson and I could go. And I'm really thankful that they have that power that we don't have in the United States Senate.
Well, I'm grateful you got it started because we wouldn't know about any of this. And it seems like every day more and more is uncovered, but you opened the door for all of that to happen. So I'm tremendously grateful.
Yeah. People can go to our speeches a couple years ago on the floor of the United States Senate and read 3 speeches that Johnson and I gave 3 different days on that subject.
Yeah. What I find so amazing is that your oversight has been bipartisan since the beginning of your career. And you have gone after everybody, whether they have Republican constituencies or Democratic constituencies, whether they're corporate, whether they're personal. You've done it all. What I find so fascinating is now, because if this oversight happens to not fit a press narrative, you got to work harder to get attention to this stuff.
Yeah, that's right. Because I just heard a figure on TV that maybe because MSNBC and CNN isn't carrying anything about Hunter Biden, 50% of the people in this country don't even know about it.
Isn't that unbelievable?
Yeah.
I mean, it really is. It's incredible.
And what's really wrong, it's a principle of journalism throughout the history of our country, that journalists are the policemen of our political system to keep government honest.
Right.
And they aren't doing their job.
They're not doing it.
And if they were doing their job, there'd be less work for me to do.
All they need to do is come out here to the Iowa State Fair and they can get the job done, couldn't they? And talk to a few of these fine people. They know what's up.
This is the real America.
This is real America.
Washington's an island surrounded by reality.
What's amazing is you've never forgotten that. You've been. So tell me about the farm. What's happened? What's the crop? What are the crops?
Well, this year it's very dry. 7 inches of rain short of last year. So last year we had a bumper crop. We probably will not have a bumper crop this year, and but that farmers know that.
Yeah.
So when you have a good year, you save some money for a bad year.
Yeah.
That's what you have to do.
Well, you always have some nice corn regardless, right?
Yeah,
I mean, you guys, geez. Yeah. And then, by the way, that's what I'm getting into when we get out of here. I got to get some corn on the cob, right?
That's a great idea.
Fellas, you want to get in here?
Yeah.
Come on in.
Yeah. Sir, your career in oversight is legendary, but maybe even more so is the way you've represented this state for an entire career. You've brought Iowa to Washington, and now with social media, you're bringing Iowa to the rest of the world. I don't know if you know, maybe you do, how many people are actually watching these videos that you do, where you explain corn, you explain the process, and if people didn't hear that, they wouldn't know how much work goes into this. I mean, it just seems to go right over people's heads, or they don't care or whatever. But now that you're doing it, people are exposed to a whole world they never would have been exposed to before. And so I think it's just incredible the way that you have built up this new persona. And I wonder if you ever thought in your wildest imagination that you would be tweeting into your iPhone or sending out videos of you talking about corn to the entire world.
No, but I saw a necessity for doing it.
Yeah.
Because only 2% of the people in this country feed the other 98%.
Yeah.
And too many people in New York City think that food grows in supermarkets and not on farms.
Yeah.
And I want to explain to them what it goes into.
Yeah.
And I think it's necessary to uphold the family farm operation. It's the most efficient production of food in the world. And Iowa consumers, American consumers, spend less of their disposable income on food than any other country in the world.
Yeah.
Now that's up 10% because of Biden and Bidenomics, but it's still a fact of life that even though food has gone up under Biden, the food is still cheaper than it is any place else in the world.
And it's American and it's Midwestern.
Yeah.
Right?
Very much
no,
so.
that's exactly right. And I just think that Iowa is very lucky that God made a Grassley, and so are the rest of us, too.
So, all right. So, last thing, as you're going to give us a little tour guide. What should we do here? If you were us and you have the rest of the day, where would you go?
What I've done every year since 1979, go see the buttered cow.
Oh, yeah? Okay.
See the biggest bull.
Yeah.
We're now at the biggest boar.
Yeah.
Biggest pig, you can say. We're going to go see the biggest ram, sheep.
Nice.
And then you should eat at the pork tent and have pork chop on the stick, which is really a bone, you know.
Yeah.
And that's the things that I try to do.
Oh, that sounds like a great agenda, doesn't it?
If you go to the telephone history building, you'll find the radio phone that I first used when I was a new member of the Senate.
Is that right?
Yeah, which is nothing more than a gigantic, what you might say, everybody can listen in. You know?
Right. It's just like simulcast.
And then, these cell phones that you used to carry around the bag.
Yes.
You'll see that there.
You've got that there too?
Yeah.
You went from that to a social media star. Well, how about that?
Starting in 2007 or 8, I went on Twitter.
Yeah.
I think, yeah.
Well, you really kind of led the way with that.
Well,
I think of all of your colleagues, you were kind of one of the earliest adopters of trying to tell the message not only of what your work was in Washington, but what Iowa is to the rest of the world.
I led the way on the first fax machine that a senator had.
That's wild. That's wild.
And I led the way on the first senator to do a satellite feed back to a Q&A from Iowans here in Iowa. to Washington, I could answer their questions.
What do you chalk that up to? Is it just a constant curiosity about information and how people are consuming it? I mean, because you literally, at each stage of your career, you're sort of pioneering new ways to talk to people.
It's a principle of representative government. If you're going to represent people, you got to know what's on their mind.
Yeah.
That's why you hear about the full Grassley. I started in 1981. I go to each of the 99 counties every year for 43 years in a row. I've still got 14 counties to finish this year. I'll get done on August the 29th to have a meeting. But I just see a few thousand Iowans face to face every year. I got 3 million constituents.
Yeah.
So I tell the people that are at my town meetings or the 3 million people that aren't there, you got to email me, postal mail me. If you phone in and leave your name and address, we'll answer on paper. But representative government's dialogue between me and my constituents. That's why I do it.
It's just fantastic, isn't it? We are so thankful for you. Thank you for everything that you've done and you continue to do. And thanks for taking time with us today. Senator Grassley, thank you so much.
God bless you. Thank you.
I mean, what a treat. Not only do you get Chuck Grassley on the show, but you get him from the Iowa Fair.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, look, seeing him in his element, you actually do realize beyond, I mean, in Washington, you always see what he's effective at, and you understand that he goes after everybody regardless of their political allegiances and whatnot. He just wants the good government, and he's been great at it forever. But then you look at him in the pig stall where we were, and you immediately understand why it is that Iowa's voted for this guy for as long as they have. Because that dude just flat gets it.
One of the things that the camera for our show did not pick up is the line of people that gathered while we were interviewing him. And then after we finished, one by one, he talked to all of them, and some of them he knew by name.
Yeah. It was so impressive.
They weren't wearing name tags. They didn't appear to be like local dignitaries. They were just people at the fair, and he knew them by name.
Sharp as a tack.
Yeah.
And then we had breaking news we dealt with him separately, where he talked about the special counsel and everything, and he didn't even need to call staff. He was like, I know it. Let's talk about it. I mean, that is a different level of stuff. Iowa, you're very, very lucky to have a guy like Senator Chuck Grassley representing you.
Yeah.
Well, I think we did it.
I think so. Absolute banger of an episode, if I may say so myself. Folks, get ready. The pregame show tomorrow, 5:30 Eastern, 4:30 Central on YouTube. Be there for sure. So, until next time, minions, keep the faith, hold the line, and own the libs. We'll see you at the pregame. Stay ruthless.